This week on the ednewsstand podcast, we take a look at Zoom backgrounds. Not specifically how to add a Zoom background to your meeting, but how to create and harness the power of Zoom backgrounds and create teachable moments or ways to create Zoom backgrounds to get to know your students better. We're going to utilize resources like Canva and Google Slides and provide you resources from educators like Jeff Utecht and Jonathan Wylie on harnessing the power of creating Zoom backgrounds for your virtual meetings. Let's dive in. So I've wanted to do this podcast for about a month or so now, ever since I saw this tweet come across my Twitter feed. And it's about creating Zoom backgrounds and making them into teachable moments. And I think it's really important. I love myself a Zoom background. And for me, the one that I use, I'll show you coming up here in just a few minutes. But I like the idea of being able to put information into your Zoom background that actually informs your students while you're doing your Zoom meeting, instead of maybe distracting them or just being something kind of fun and light. And there is definitely a place for that. For me personally, when I'm doing some digital citizenship with my first grade students, each week I choose a different Pixar movie background. And then after we're all done, I ask the kids if they know where I'm at. And so I'm just kind of working my way through the Pixar catalog. But when I saw this come across my Twitter feed, I thought this is something that I really need to show people. And then a couple of weeks back, when I was in one of my professional development sessions and we did a breakout room in a Zoom room, somebody asked me, "Well, how do you create a virtual background in Zoom?" And so this isn't so much about how to add a virtual background, and I'll show you how to do that. This is more about creating specific Zoom backgrounds to meet the needs for you during your Zoom meeting. So I have a lot of resources this week in the newsletter, and I'm going to go through each of these individually, but I just and then I'll show you two specific resources that I recommend you use to create your own personal Zoom backgrounds. Okay, and then I'll show you a place where you can find fun Zoom backgrounds as well. But let's just kind of get into this now. So as you can see, they are fun and helpful, but they are very good in keeping students engaged and informed. So we're going to use the tools Canva, and we're going to use Google Slides. Just two easy, free resources for you. Canva I use virtually every day. Google Slides I use constantly as well, not as often as I used to when I was in the classroom, but I certainly do use it at least a few times a week. So Google Slides, another great resource for you. Okay, so let's talk specifically about virtual backgrounds. So you can see here, I've got this Zoom logo up on my newsletter this week, and if you click on it, it will take you to this resource for just fun virtual Zoom backgrounds. So you can see here, you got the 49ers stadium, but you scroll down more, you've got some that just meet your specific need for the season that we're in. There are sports-related ones, car-related ones. Big Brother, if you watch that, one of my favorite all-time TV shows. You can see here, you can load more. Criminal Minds, if you watch the Criminal Minds TV show. Getty Images has some. So there's just a ton of different resources here that you can use and download and find ones. You can also just do some searching for fun backgrounds too. You can find The Simpsons, or you can find Parks and Rec or The Office or something. So a lot of resources. Zoom has just provided you here with a bunch of resources that you can download to use as your virtual backgrounds. So definitely recommend checking that out. The next resource I have here is Canva. So let's talk a little bit about Canva. Canva is a resource that allows you to create a lot of personal publishing graphics. So you can create YouTube headers, Google Classroom headers, Instagram posts, Instagram story posts, Twitter headers, Facebook headers and posts. Some of them you can download a GIF, you can make a movie, you can have a still image. So there's tons of resources available on Canva, and I'm not going to get too deep into Canva, but I'll show you how to create your own virtual Zoom background. So if you click on this, I have two different resources here. You can see my little foam finger bitmoji. The Canva logo is a link, and the For Teachers is a link. So let's go right here to Canva. This little link will show you exactly how to create your own virtual background in Canva. So you can kind of read through this, and I'm going to walk you through the steps on how to do that here in just a minute. And I'm going to show you some of the templates that they already have built in Canva. So here's one cool resource for you. Another awesome resource for you that I saw come across my Twitter feed this week was Jonathan Wylie had posted about creating the Canva Zoom backgrounds. And so you'll see here, and this is his link here, new Zoom backgrounds from Canva. So he goes through a whole list of things about creating customizable backgrounds from Canva. And I'm going to show you a bunch of these templates and kind of how you can find them and where you can find them and how you can manipulate them. So, and then there's a little video here from Zoom about specific virtual backgrounds. So he has a lot of stuff here about virtual backgrounds. The other link that he has is if you are an educator, there are free Canva Pro accounts for educators. And so I didn't realize this until I checked on his website. But Canva Pro, which I definitely recommend, costs about $120 a year, which isn't a terrible price. It's actually a really great price for all the things that you get and all the different ways that you're able to manipulate your products in Canva. But if you can prove, walking through the steps on that you are an educator, they will give you that Pro version for free. I think there are a few little caveats in there as well, but it's great. And then right in his blog post here, you'll see where you can apply for the Canva for Education link. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you find that Canva is a resource that you definitely want to try. So check out those two resources, and there are links to both of those inside your inside this week's newsletter. And then if you just want great other cool tips, you can follow Jonathan Wylie on Twitter at Jonathan Wylie, and I've got his Twitter handle right there and a link to his Twitter feed that you can check out. A thing that kind of spurred this all on was Jeff Utecht. He was the first one that I saw tweet out this thing from Shifting Schools, and he's a founder of Shifting Schools, but he put out a little PDF resource. And he put out a thing asking, are you leveraging virtual backgrounds? And for me, that was kind of the jumping off point that I was like, you know what? I am not leveraging my virtual backgrounds, and I definitely should be. So I went to his website and found some of the resources that he has here. And this is a free PDF download. And there's a link to this in the newsletter that you can find. But 4 different downloads for you and things to think about. This bingo board. So you can play with the students. Maybe you have prizes that you want to give away, a free homework coupon or free participation points coupon, or maybe you want to mail them a candy bar, or because we're in the holiday season right now, maybe you want to mail them some candy canes or something. But you can do this bingo card here. Another cool bingo card that I saw here was on Leveraging Learning, the website, and this one was what happens in a conference call, and I thought this was really funny too. And so this is something that you could play with your student each time, where you've got that, like, you know, that awkward silence, or somebody's got their animal that they're showing in the Zoom call, or you know, maybe you have more than half of the people have their camera off, or, you know, who knows what, or there's yelling in the background. So you can kind of create your own bingo card in any of the resources I'm going to show you. But this I thought was a pretty cool idea too. So getting back to Shifting Schools here, you can see they've got the bingo card. They've got this here, download different ways to talk about ideas or think about your lesson plan. During story time, so they've got this, the person in the Zoom call would be just on the side here, and then they've got their things to think about during the story time. And then finally, they've got some sentence starters, so you're going to put the presenter kind of right in the middle, and then you've got your sentence starters on the side. So you can download these Zoom backgrounds free just by getting the PDF, and you'll see that there are links right in the PDF to download these Shifting Schools Zoom backgrounds. So a lot of different ways for you to participate in these. And so if you want to learn more about Shifting Schools, you can click on the link here. If you want to learn more about Jeff Utecht or follow him on Twitter, I've got links to his stuff right in here as well. Some other interesting resources that I found with regard to teachable moments in Zoom backgrounds is, one is allowing students to personalize their Zoom background and maybe give them a task. Or, you know, I know we're kind of farther into the school year now, but just getting to know your students better. Some districts have been virtual learning since day one, and so teachers haven't had the opportunity to maybe get to know their students as in depth as they would had the students been in person. Maybe students aren't showing up to Zoom calls as often. This might give students a reason to show up to the Zoom call. And even maybe if they're not on the Zoom call, maybe it still gives them a way to showcase their personality without being on the camera. Maybe they've got their camera on, but they've got the virtual background going on the Zoom call. So you've some different ideas that have been inspired by some of these virtual backgrounds here. This is from Koppel Middle School. And so they've got some examples here. So you can see the students put their name, they wrote their name, and then they have some things about themselves that they wanted to showcase. Here's another example here, maybe a favorite quote or something that they learned about the lesson that you were talking about. And then the last example that they had here was just getting to know the students. So they've got something about their hobbies, what they love. So different ways that you can kind of think about ways to inspire your students to create their own virtual backgrounds, or reasons for the students to create their own virtual backgrounds. Maybe you want the students to come to your lesson with an answer already in hand, and so they're going to create a virtual background based on that information. And then you don't have to call on students, or you don't have to have them type in the chat. That information is already listed on the side of the virtual background. So I thought that idea was pretty cool. So those are just a couple of resources that we have available here within our newsletter. So there are links to both of those resources down here at the bottom to engage students maybe a little bit more in the virtual background. So some virtual background ideas, and I'm going to show you where these are. You can see here I've got the lesson background ideas over on the right-hand side. Virtual backgrounds work great on computers, whether it's a Mac or a Windows machine, whether it's a laptop or a desktop. They also work on the iPad pretty well. The issue with Chromebooks is it's not so easy for students to create a Zoom background on a Chromebook. There are a lot of hoops you need to jump through, and it's not something that I really recommend doing on a Chromebook. If you want to dig into that a little bit more, I don't really want to spend the time on that right now in this podcast, but students can do it. It takes some work on your end. It takes some work on their end. But like I said, it's a lot of hoops to jump through, so it's not something that I really recommend. So let's get into some of the virtual backgrounds that are available in Canva. So you can see here, I'm in Canva, and I already have downloaded a few of these options or have the options available for you to show. And you can see, let's start from ground zero here. So when you go to Canva and you log in, you are brought to the home page. And so up at the top, you have the option to create a design. So if you create a design, you see here that there are the design options. And you can choose one of these if you want to, but one of the options is Zoom virtual background. But you can also search. So I can just do a search, and you'll see that it comes up with my options. And it gives you some other options like a funny one or an Earth Day one. But if I click on just Zoom virtual background, it gives me my template already laid out. And then over on the side, I have some of these that you can scroll through. So you can see here the for you. There are funny ones. They are categorized specifically for you. And then once you get these individual results, then you can get all results. So I'll move this over here to the other side. So now you can see all the results here. So I've already gone through and I've kind of categorized these. So I'm going to move over to the ones that I've done here. So these are the lists that I put together in the newsletter. So you can see you've got some stuff on classroom rules. Maybe you've got that information in here. And all of this is editable. So if you have a background, you want to take some stuff out, you can remove stuff. You have an undo button at the top. So all of this stuff is changeable. You can see here my color bars at the top. So if I want to change any of these colors, I can certainly change the colors. So I can manipulate this to be exactly what I want it to be. If you want to add your Bitmoji, you can certainly add your Bitmoji. So, here I've got my Bitmoji. Maybe I want to throw this in there. You can upload your own images into Canva and work with those images as well. So a lot of different ways for you to manipulate your stuff right here. The other thing you can see here is I have animate and I have time listed up at the top. So a couple of my Zoom backgrounds are animated, so they're a GIF, or you can download it as an MP4, because Zoom will take either a still image or a movie in the background to use as your virtual background. So kind of keep that in mind as well as far as utilizing virtual backgrounds, okay? So we've got classroom rules. Here's your homework. Maybe you're listing, you have class and you're talking about, oh yeah, I need to list my homework off, so we've got that. Just a plain old welcome, right? Here, you can leave this. Maybe you're going to walk away for a minute or two and you still want this to be in there. You can change your virtual background to be this, so you can start the meeting and then you can go and do your other thing and say, oh, you know what, I'm let the students know you're around. You're just going to be back in just a minute. This one I thought was very interesting, to be able to put multiple things. So you're teaching maybe a concept. You've got your charts up on the wall in your classroom. Maybe you want to create a virtual background based on some of the anchor charts that you have in your classroom. A nice way for you to create those anchor charts here right in a Zoom background. A song maybe you're going to sing with the students, or a poem you want the students to recognize, or maybe you want the students to see a passage and talk about the passage, but have it up on the screen while you're talking about it. Interesting ways to do that. You're going to give the kids some directions here. So you're going to have 15 minutes. Maybe I'm going to send you in a breakout room, just to give the kids kind of a heads up about what's coming up in your meeting for the Zoom session that you're in. Some objectives for either the lesson that you're teaching or your class as a whole. Talk about how students can achieve the best grade on the assignment. So different ways for you to come at that. And again, all of this stuff is editable, so I can get rid of these grids if I want to. I can put them back. I can swap out the microscope, or I can change the color of the microscope. Here we go. Principles of sociology. So you've kind of got the schedule. You've got your time down here at the bottom. So telling kids, maybe you're not going to Zoom for the full time, and maybe you only want to Zoom for the first 15 minutes of class. So you can say, this is going to be a 15-minute Zoom, so kids have a heads up about how long they are actually going to be in the Zoom, and how much time they would have then to actually work on their assignment during your designated class period. Here's another one about today's activities. So we're going to do a workbook exercise and a show and tell, and then we're going to do some reading time, and then different multiple backgrounds for today's activity. So just different ways for you to come at it. And depending on what grade level you teach, if you teach high school, maybe you want it to look a little more professional. If you teach elementary, maybe you want it to be a little bit more fun and light. But again, you can design this how you want. So here's some welcoming templates and just some reminders that you have in here. A Lego one, which I thought was amazing. I loved this Lego one. Thought that was really cool. The underwater theme. All of these are just reminders for your students, but fun different ways, and you can move them around one way to the other. And then your last couple welcomes. And so as you look through these different templates, you've got different elements that you can add over in Canva, and you can do searches in Canva. So they've got different stickers you can add, and some of the stickers are animated, so they'll move around. Different foliage, different symbols, different ways you can add text into your Zoom session and on your Zoom background. Here are some videos you can add if you want to add some videos to your Zoom background. So a lot of different cool layers that you can put into your Canva background. So let's talk about once you get this loaded in here. So once you have your stuff in Canva, so I'm going to use this one. So what you can do in Canva, which is great, is you can have an image here, and you can create multiple images, and then you can download them individually. So right now I'm on page 2, and if I want to label it, and so I'll call this one algebra homework, or just algebra. Let's call it algebra. So I have this one, and I only want to download this specific slide here. So I go up to download. Now I get multiple file types. So I'm going to change this to just a PNG. And then I can select my pages. So I'm going to go up to pages, and I'm going to choose here. So you can see, since I labeled it, it's easier for me to figure out which one it is. So I'm going to click on algebra. I'll click on done, and then I'm just going to download. And it's only going to download that one specific slide. So it only downloads slide number 2. Okay? And you can see now that it's downloaded in my downloads. So we have this image here. So now that we have that image, I'm going to go out of Canva and before I jump into my Zoom meeting and show you how this works, I'm going to jump into Google Slides. So I'm in Google Slides and I just create a blank template. The blank template should be good enough for Google Slides. You shouldn't have to reformat it. You shouldn't have to change the size or any of that stuff. So for me, I'm just going to change the layout, and I just like to choose a blank one. I just want to start from scratch. 90% of the time, in my Google Slides, always start from a blank template because I want to be able to change and manipulate to be whatever I want. If you want to add a theme to your presentation, you certainly can do that. Maybe I want to use this geometric theme. The issue with that is, so I clicked the geometric theme, and you can see here that the slides, right, they don't show up. So maybe I'm going to choose this main point one instead. So I'll get rid of this one so I can get a little bit of color in here. Let's delete this slide. So now I've got this information. I know my face is going to be on here, so I'm going to slide this over just a little bit so I can put this information over here. And I'm just going to change this to be a reminder and return, and I need to change the size of this to, let's just say 14. Homework due at end of Zoom, and read pages 48 through 56 for tomorrow. So I've got these, and maybe I want to throw in some bullet points. I'll do a little bit so here we go. So I've got this as my reminder for tomorrow. And again, you can change your layout stuff. So maybe I want them to be double spaced. There we go. So I've got this little reminder for tomorrow. Okay. So I've created a slide for my Zoom background, and maybe I want this to be a Zoom background. And same rules here with your Zoom backgrounds. When you create a Zoom background in Google Slides, you can make multiple pages of your Zoom backgrounds and then just download the page that you want. So up here under File, I've got File. I want to download, and I'm going to download it as a PNG. And it's the current slide, so it wouldn't download all of the slides in my presentation. It's just the one current slide. So you can see here, I've got this Zoom background, and now I'm all set. So here's where it gets kind of fun. So let's go to Zoom. I'll create a new meeting. And you can see, I'm not going to join the computer audio. So you can see this is my favorite Zoom background. This is the one I use for everything. This is Ron Swanson's background from Parks and Rec. I think it's great. It looks like I'm in my office. It's amazing. So this is the one, this is my default go-to because I'm in different places throughout my house sometimes, and I don't want people to see, maybe I've got some blankets around, or maybe the place behind me, it's a messy office, or wherever I'm at, or my office is messy if I'm at school. So this is just my default go-to. I love it all the time. So when you are in your Zoom session, over here under where it says Stop Video, if you choose the little up arrow, you get Choose a Virtual Background. So here are all the different backgrounds that I've used to this date here. Here's the one that I used last time with my kids, the Pixar one for Wylie. We've got Coco. So we have a lot of fun ones here to utilize. Toy Story, one of my favorites, a great virtual background. But if you want to add your own virtual background, you click on the little plus to add image here. And what will happen is it will open up your Finder or your Windows Explorer. I'm going to go to my downloads, which is where my images were. I'm going to choose this background, and there we go. And then I close out of this. And now, if I move over, you can see that I'm in my virtual background talking to my students, and I can point to different things that I've got going on. So just remember, we've got this stuff going on over here. The issue with virtual backgrounds in Zoom, though, if you do not have a green screen, sometimes if you try to bring things in, things get a little lost. So if I bring in my iPad, that's working, but sometimes it'll get a little bit lost if I put it off to the side. So kind of keep that in mind if you're going to show things in your Zoom session, it really has to be in front of you, because once you get it off to the side, it starts to disappear. So think about that a little bit when you're using your Zoom backgrounds, or you can do a couple of things. You can hang some green paper behind you. You can paint the wall green behind you. You can get a little green screen that hangs on your chair. So lots of different ways for you to utilize the green screen feature. So let's go into here. So you can see here that you do have the option to say, I have a green screen. And if you click on that, then it will recognize that you have a green screen, and it will utilize the green screen. Instead of, if you click on it, then it will show you, if I click on it now, it'll show you everything that's going on behind me, and I'm going to try to avoid that. So if you don't have a green screen, then just leave that off, and it will Zoom will do its best to utilize kind of what you have going on. So let's add the other one that I made. So you can see this algebra one is the one that I used for, that I created in Canva. So it's really crisp, really clean. So let's take a look at the one that I created in Google Slides. There we go. This the same way. I'll slide over so you can see how far I'm off camera, right, based in my recording here, and off to the side of my microphone. But then you can see it shows up. It's very clear and easy for the students to read, and it gives them a good setup of information, because you have so much space on your screen to utilize. This way you don't have to share your screen for students, and you can just put the information up there instead of having to click around and do all the screen sharing and everything else. So I'm going to go back here to my virtual background, show you one more time, and I'm just going to go back and choose my Ron Swanson default background right here, get back to that, and your virtual background will start as soon as you start your meeting. So I have this one up here, and this one will be on every time I start my meeting by default. You don't have to go and add your virtual meeting every time. You just click on this and you're good to go with your virtual background. So something good to keep in mind if you want to use the same virtual background for every time that you utilize your Zoom meeting. So that's what we have here for creating your Zoom backgrounds for your virtual meetings in either Google Slides or in Canva. Both great resources. So the last thing that I want to talk about specifically, and I just found out about this on Friday, was Jonathan Wylie and I had tweeted back and forth a couple of times about fun, interesting Zoom backgrounds, because I was like, oh, I did not realize that they had all of those templates. And so I saw last spring that Canva was adding some Zoom backgrounds, and I get periodic emails that they continue to add more and more Zoom backgrounds, but I hadn't seen that they had added all of these Zoom backgrounds. So when I saw Jonathan Wylie had tweeted that out, and I tweeted back at him, I was like, oh, that's sweet. And then he tweeted at me, and we went back and forth for a couple of tweets. And then he's like, yeah, the Zoom backgrounds in Canva would be great with this software. And yes, that's how you pronounce it, So you can click on this and you can learn all about their software. It's only available on a Mac right now, but you can add to your video chats and virtual meetings. So it's like being a news anchor. And so I haven't really had a super big chance to utilize it yet, but I wanted to provide you with a link to their website to look at it a little bit more. So I'm going to open it up here. I did install it and I did play around with it a little bit. And what I thought was cool is it provides you with multiple cameras. And this is just the demo example. So you can see here that this is what they've got going on. So you can have GIFs behind you. I mean, this stuff is great. So if these are different things that you could have in your Zoom meeting to play around with and to talk to students, right? So you can have other videos playing behind you while you're talking. So just great resource for you if you want to try to take your Zoom meeting to another level. So if you're like, well, I just do a regular Zoom meeting like with this, showing my background, and it's, no big deal. But if you want to start to incorporate a Zoom background and take some baby steps, just with some resources on the side, or maybe just the Ron Swanson background just to kind of lighten it up a little bit, you've got that. But then if you decide to download you can take your Zoom meetings to another level by showcasing other information while you're presenting, whether they are videos or whether they are GIFs or whatever they might be that you want to share with your students. So this is currently only available on a Mac. They are looking for beta testers for Windows, so if you're a Windows user and you're feeling confident that you want to try this, I definitely recommend checking out their website and downloading their software and giving it a try. So that is this week's newsletter. There's kind of a lot going on, a lot of resources for you to look at, a lot of things for you to digest. I think once you sign up for Canva and maybe try it, you're going to be hooked like I am. I've been a user for quite a long time, and I think it's a fantastic resource. If you're like, no, I think I'm good with Google Slides, there are tons of resources in Google Slides as well. I'll put some links to some resources for some other backgrounds that you can download for Google Slides on some other websites that I've talked about in the past. But I definitely recommend trying to incorporate a Zoom background for yourself this week in some way, shape, or form, just to make it fun. We have a couple weeks here before Christmas happens, and so you can get festive with that, or kind of just make things more fun for your students, or try and play the game where you get your students to personalize some of the backgrounds that they might have, to just maybe get to know them a little bit better, or figure out a way that you can utilize it in your classroom by the students creating a background before they come into the class with a question that you've already provided them that you kind of are looking for the answer to, whether it's related to the assignment that you have coming up or the assignment that you had assigned for the day before. So I hope you take advantage of the Zoom backgrounds, and I hope you find the resources very beneficial. Thank you for tuning in this week. As always, you can find me on Twitter at ReynoldsTroy. Find old episodes of the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on Instagram at ednewsstand, and you can download my app to stay up to date with my content by scanning the QR code or by going to ednewsstand.glideapps.io and saving the app to your home screen. You can also find all the resources I just mentioned in my newsletter and watch the video I made on my website at ednewsstand.weebly.com. I'm Troy Reynolds. We'll see you next time on the Ed Newsstand Podcast.